You being able to correct that child, and soothing when they are anxious or when they present symptoms of worry. Are you able to give them comfort? Or do they have now to create their own ways of pacifying their emotions when they are going out of hand? So we need to be able to soothe these children. And at the same time, we also uh, need to understand that love now, when we're looking at it from a holistic perspective, it encompasses a range of strong and positive emotions, because emotions exist both positive and negative. But for love, the purpose of this conversation, it has to do with those positive emotions and their mental health states. Mental health states involves what they are thinking and how they are thinking, how they interpret the world. Okay? All those are important because they stimulate a response or a reaction from a child. So, the perception, feelings, and needs that drive towards safety is what you need to provide this child. You need to correct aspects where they have fears or they have phobias. You need to encourage them to show up for themselves, to understand their needs, to express them, and to ask because they will be hurt. Um, and so, because I've mentioned emotions, there are people who ask me, what is an emotion? What is a feeling? Okay. So I want to use this opportunity to shed light into that, where emotion will result from your circumstances. So think about your home environment. Think about your school environment. Think about the friendships you have, Think about the financial state. Think about the health state. Think about maybe the interaction you have with your peers. Those are the circumstances you will find yourself in a day-to-day living. So the feelings that you get out of those circumstances or out of the mood that is internal, your own feelings and expression of your own capacity at that time, or the relationships that you're having, those are what we call emotions. So we can see right here that emotions are very multifaceted because they look at your internal subjective experiences, your facial expressions, and your psychological reactions. So, internal and subjective is based on your worldview and the exposure that you have had at that particular time, or that child has had at that particular time. Then their facial expression is out of what they have observed an expression should be. And you can see that image I have put there with the different facial expressions. And they tell when one is sad to when one is happy to when one is feeling neutral. So all these are an indicator or a way we can interpret how somebody's emotions are. While while at that, emotions range. I talked of them being positive and them being negative. So I want us to focus on positive because positive is what brings about love. And those emotions would look like hope, whether you're hopeful, whether you're inspired, whether you're in amusement. Think about a time when you watched a clown show, a cartoon, a comedy, and you laughed your heart out. Were you amused? Did you feel some sort of love? Did you radiate love? Feelings of serenity, gratitude, joy, some level of pride. When did you do well? Were you commented, congratulated for that? When did you put yourself, forward? And were you encouraged for even trying? Did it give you a level of pride? Because that pride builds on that feeling of love or the feeling of desire, desiring something good, desiring to do something good, desiring to be kind. So all those make up what we call love in the world of a child. We will continue, and I want to thank everybody for staying tuned in, and those who are joining in, please, we appreciate you. So we have looked at how a child perceives love, what love encompasses. We have looked at what emotions are. Now we are at what feelings are. So feelings are conscious. They are the conscious experience which help you to interpret what? The emotions. Remember, if you're here feeling sad, if you're experiencing an emotion of sadness, then the feeling is what we will be able to tell because it is in your conscious. It's not subconscious. You cannot fake a feeling. So they help us to interpret emotions and hence the response or reaction both psychologically and emotionally. So psychologically, we are talking of your cognitive interpretation, and emotionally is what goes on in your neuron or chemical balance within the body. Remember, for a child, their brain is still forming, so their neural connectivity is very malleable. So when they experience these positive emotions, we are allowing them to stay alert and curious to take up more from the world. But when they experience negative emotions, which skew their perception of love, then we are closing them up. Those neural connectivity are not ready or open to receive or to even explore the world. Allow me to admit some people I'm seeing in the waiting room. I see a person with four gadgets. If you get in, please, you can, you know, exit the gadgets that might not be useful, but karibu sana. All right. So when with that understanding of feelings and emotions, we can say emotions are internal and instinctive reactions. Instincts are your survival skills or your survival sense. Okay? So emotions exist within your survival sense, while feelings are conscious. Conscious means it has been nurtured, you have learned, and you have wired yourself to take this up, right? Or to respond in a certain way. So feelings are conscious and they shape a child's perception of love. So while we are at that, let me know, admin, whether you're able to admit the people who are in the waiting room. And I will invite all of you, whoever has a question, to just post it on the chat. I will be responding to it. All right. So that is what love is. I've explained what love is. Why is love important? Right? Why is it important for a child? Because we think children don't need love. Do they even need to express love? A lot of us think, children just need to be provided for and you just move on with life. So long as they have a roof over their head, food to eat, a bed to sleep, a school that they are going to, then you've done your job as a parent. But what I'm trying to say here is if you're not going to show up presently for that child, if you will not provide that human connection, then that child is not going to grow up holistically and their mental health will be, at risk because they will not have learned how to regulate themselves. So love is important because it allows for neuroplasticity and want to have an integrated brain. So neuroplasticity is what I was talking about, the neurons being eager and ready to wire and take up, information. It creates curiosity. It helps the child to be attentive. It builds on their cognitive abilities. Integrated brain means that they can move outside themselves because their needs as a child or as a person are met to now being able to respond to the world from a balanced need, not from a pleasing perspective. Okay. The second thing is that the importance, you have a mind sight. Notice the word sight, and sight looks at seeing, all right? A sense of seeing the community, a sense of care, a sense of compassion or collaboration. So this child will be able to do that. And when we look at the skills that we should help children have, compassion is one, collaboration is another, you know. Care and kindness are bonuses. So if your child withholds from collaborating, it means that there is an aspect of them and an ingredient of love that is lacking. And you need to look at it from the home base. All right. Um, it helps, having love helps the child to be able to interlink or integrates the parent-child relationship, to know and appreciate that this is my parent and I'm happy that I have this and I feel secure. So my attachment with my parent or my caregiver is secure. But when there is a lack in the ingredient of love, this child will be insecure, they will be avoidant, or they will be ambivalent or anxious. All right. And those are some of the symptoms that we see later on in life. And we, you know, people come to therapy saying, this is how I feel when I don't receive A and B. And it's because when they were growing up, there's an aspect that was lacking in the view of love. So we want this child to be able to have an interlink or to integrate the parent-child or parent-caregiver love. The other thing is that it builds resilience. And I want us to look at resilience from a positive perspective, in that we are not saying put yourself forward and take on the pain or the struggle because you're strong and you can handle that. We want to look at resilience here as the person being able to adapt and remove themselves when the environment is not supportive of them, and speak their mind and be creative in overcoming those challenges without denting their psychological, emotional, or physical needs. We want to help this child to be resilient in that perspective. The other thing is that love becomes then a vital force which helps the child to grow and to thrive. Not just the physical growth that we see, but in being able to thrive, navigate their environment, and take advantage, you know, whether it's by teamwork, collaboration, they thrive there. Whether it's by offering support and kindness to others, they thrive there and they feel fulfilled. And in terms of with a challenged mental health, we also have people having physical challenges. So their growth or their milestone might be affected. So when you provide love, this child is able to grow and achieve their milestones as expected, or even surprise us with going over and above. This child is able to develop relationship and have healthy attachment styles. So here we are looking at parental and social relationships being the biggest predictor of the mental health of this child, or the mental health in your life. Your parents and the social relationship did shape that. It helps us to know whether you will be stable or you're gonna have a challenge. And if you scan back, you can tell the experiences that you value that made you feel loved, and the experiences that you did not value, and how they affected your attachment style. So, and since we are looking at cognition, intellect growing out of love, the brain, since it's a work in progress, it helps the brain is able to grow. And when you're in your adolescent years, when we say, oh, we cannot tell why this teenager is behaving the way they are, remember they are behaving that way because even their brain, their emotions, their neurons, the chemical in the body is all growing at a very rapid rate. And at this point, this child is able to remodel, even in their teenage years, they can heal what they did not receive when they were younger. So they can remodel their view of love. They can prune what they feel does not serve them. And maybe in the pruning process, that's why you hear a lot of people saying that child or that teenager seems very selfish or self centered. They are actually learning to prune the things that are not healthy for them, to create space for what allows them to have more connectivity, to help for what helps them to feel that they belong and to help them feel that they are thriving. So we need to be able to integrate kindness and compassion to form what one perceives as an identity or association. All that identity and association is a stage that one goes through in their adolescent stage, and you carry that on in your life. So if you in your adolescent life you felt confident, you felt that you can take on the world, that's the attitude you carry on through life, unless you go through a traumatic incident. Whereas, if in your adolescent life you felt that you were unequipped in some level, then you carry that in your adult life, unless now you go through therapy or you go through some self or personal development areas that help you to bridge that gap. Because remember, your neurons are still, your brain is still growing. So we need to understand here that a child requires a stable, a predictable environment that offers a feeling of love. All right. And I will go back to what love is so that we can be able to relate. The feeling of love, we are looking at it being security, being trust, and being predictability. We are also looking at it being you seeing that child, you soothing that child, you forming a trusting relationship by being present, by communicating, and by being predictable. So that is what our definition of love is. So when you're loved at home, how do you feel as a person? When you're loved by your partner, because I know I'm speaking to parents, I'm speaking to people who are in relationships, planning to be parents. Yeah. So when you feel love, how does that help you shape or show up in the world? Because love is like a shield, as you can see in that picture. That child is has a surrounding of fire, so they have a perimeter of protection. And where they are looking up to, there is a shield that is bright, somewhat guiding them. And then there is the aspect of the shape of the love heart. And we can see these things extending beyond even the shield. So this child goes into the world feeling like a warrior, feeling that they have a winner mentality, feeling like they can take on the world. So that is what love should give you. It should give you a feeling of safety and protection. It should give you a sense of communication in that and trust, because they are predictable relationships. And it will help you to have healthy attachments. So why is love important? Why is love important to you when you think about it? I narrowed down this. Of course, it grows broader. Love helps in the brain development. Do you love your mind? Do you love your brain? Do you love your heart? You know, do you love your gut? Because all those parts have a brain, they have a mind of their own. So love helps in the development of this. I talked of neuroplasticity and resilience. It helps you to build secure attachment. Now, you may have observed caregivers who walk into a room and a child runs away or stops doing what they were doing because they don't feel safe. And you may have observed caregivers who step into a room and a child sprints and runs to them and wants to talk about how their day was, or wants to talk about or hear how the caregiver's day was. Now, that's a healthy or that's a secure attachment. And the previous one was the unhealthy attachment. So, love helps even the parent child relationship to look and to appear and to be healthy. Love helps in identity formation. What is your self perception? Do you know who you are? Do you know your worth? Do you know your skills? Do you know your abilities? Do you put yourself forward in the right places, because if you do that, then you have opportunities of trying and achieving and again trying and repeating that cycle. But for people who don't have an identity, they will rely on being told or the description of others to themselves. All right. And that description might not be the whole picture, because you're different from the person who is looking at you. Your experiences or your internal analysis are different from the person who is looking at you. So when you surrender that to someone else, and at this point, they might not be, trained in supporting in mental health or non-judgmental environment, then you're putting yourself at risk. So when your child can be able to tell you, this one I can do or I can try, it is important to encourage them and to find out from them, why do they think that they can do that? What do they hope to receive from it? So that you have room for building that child up towards unfolding their potential. The other part is that it helps with the mental health, and this includes social connections, because these social connections will predict your future well-being. In this day and age, we don't look at your net worth as as the measure of success. We say you are as good as your social connection. So are your social connections healthy? If they are healthy, then you're healthy as a person. If they're not healthy, then you're attracting something that you're feeling is lacking in you. So even when you see your child forming those social connections that are questionable, it's good to try and help them discover what would be healthy, or learn better values, so that they bring in social connections that marry with their values. So when you're given this love, in the aspect that we talked about, what will you observe in that child? You will notice that this child is able to give attention, or is attentive, is curious to learn, and is also exerting themselves. They present themselves, in the best version, and it looks effortless for them. It's not work. They're not doing it so that they can get appreciation. You will notice that the way they reason, their cognitive connection is, maybe above a child their age, or it makes sense, it pleases you, it pleases them, and they have conviction of their reasoning. You will notice that the choices they make are healthy. You will notice that intellectually they are growing, intellectually, emotionally, socially, psychologically, they are growing in all those aspects. And you will notice that they are able to have social resources. All right. Um, so up to that point, I just want to take a few minutes to see what questions we might have had from you guys, and then I can respond to that um, as we proceed. Let me see. Admin, if there are questions, please send them my way. Can you hear me well? Admin, please let me know, because we have quite an audience. Um, Admin, are you there? Are there questions that you can see on your end?
No questions yet.
Okay, no problem. I will take it to mean that we have a good following. So we will proceed. If you have any questions, feel free to write it to us, and we are happy to respond to that. So who is responsible for teaching this child love? All right. Uh, the people who we most of the time assume have no role to play most of the time are schools and teachers. And we expect that schools and teachers are able to build on the emotional intelligence and help in the social learning of this child. And so, because social learning is an aspect of love, the schools and teachers are responsible for that. Then we have parents. Parents, because behavior or the expression of love is learned, the child sees and models or mimics that. So parents should provide or should be good role models. They should provide a nurturing environment, nurturing in that it is safe so that this child can be able to explore and can be able to express themselves and they can learn. We also have peer and community. Those are friendship and social support. They shape or they teach what love is. Okay. So sometimes there are parents who come in for therapy and say, when my child went to school, they came back with this behavior. Yes, they came back with that behavior because they are learning from their friendship groups or their social support. The other key area that we cannot forget here is that there is media influence. And so it shapes your child's perspective of love. So a child can learn positive emotions that we have looked at. They can learn to have positive feelings. They can mimic what they have been learning from the media. And they can as well normalize negative emotions, feelings, or perception. It can shape their worldview of love or their sense of safety, their sense of being seen, their sense of security. Because, right now, I know a lot of people are, um, they are on the verge of wanting to be seen, so posting or keeping up to date with all the information that is on media. So even when a child gets stuck in that loop, they may not know how to ground themselves because they are overstimulated. And so their focus or concentration or commitment to a job or to something gets affected. And so when it even comes to relationship, they have learned those patterns and they may not be consistent because of the media influence. So we have to be careful on what we are exposing our children to. So since we've seen who is responsible, how then do we show love to our children and to the growing teenagers? We do this by creating play and engagement. If you ask a child what they love most about school, their first answer will be, I like school because I get to play with my friends. Okay. So when they are playing, they're experiencing love, they are being seen, they are being allowed, they are able to express themselves. So we should encourage play and engagement and not take them to the play centers that are there and sitting far as a parent. If you are get and play with them. If it is within the homestead, have times that you're able to play. That is, you can go cycling, you can kick balls around or throw balls, you can blow bubbles, you can conduct a science and experiment where this child is learning or growing in creativity. You can do art projects together so that the barrier or the fear that might exist that you would be judging them, those walls crumble and the child is able to express themselves and see themselves as capable, of course, using you as a benchmark. The other area you can look at is being able to communicate, having some communication and routine, because this provides predictability. So if you ask a child, what do you do in a day? And that child is able to tell you, okay, I wake up in the morning, I spread my bed, I brush my teeth, I wash my face, I go take breakfast, or I shower, I go take breakfast, then dress up, go to school. When I come back from school, I take some time to, relax my mind. Then I sit, do my homework, then I have dinner with my family. It's a child who has routine. But if you ask a child and they don't have a routine, they cannot be able to predict. And even themselves, they don't know what to expect. So what does that make them later in life? They become anxious, okay? Or they become avoidant, or they don't believe in their own abilities when they are given tasks because they never learned that from the home front. The other thing is that you create positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement affirms it and it encourages good behavior. Okay. How does this happen? When a child does a good thing, make a big deal out of it. Even if you're making a big deal every day, they will always find something better and better and better, or they will know this is how I should show up. These are the values that are appreciated in my family. These are the values that I should take up. These are the values that speak to me. Make a big deal, affirm them. All right. Um, you should model care and compassion. So, how, as a parent, as a caregiver, are you demonstrating kindness? Are you demonstrating care? Do you have members of your family that are in need and you ignore because your child is observing and is seeing and they are using that as their moral compass? And so, in life, when they're demanded more of, they will not know how to show up in that perspective because they didn't learn it from their home front. All right. So we are concluding. We look at love being essential for a child's growth, for them to grow healthy in terms of physically, in terms of psychologically, in terms of emotionally. They need to have those aspects we talked as encompassing love. They need to have secure relationships and to be able to foster mental health and emotional health. All right. So mental health is what is their world, what is their perception, what are the things that you approve of and agree with? Are they incongruent or agreeable with what that child sees as correct? Sometimes a child could think something is right and it's not, but it's based on their perception or their exposure. So you need to step into their world and help them elevate that. The other thing is that everyone plays a role in shaping a child's experience of love. So whether you're an uncle, whether you're a cousin, whether you're a caregiver, a parent, a neighbor, whatever your role is, you play a role in shaping a child's experience. I see a lot of people seeing children and smiling and making funny faces, and trying to interact with that child. And when you're doing that, you're shaping that child's experience. Um, the other thing that a parent needs to do or a caregiver needs to do is integrate. They need to integrate their view of love. They need to heal and they need to nurture positive perspective. Because when you are unable to nurture this, you will definitely affect your child's view. So it will be carried forward. But when you integrate your view of love, if you feel it lacks in a certain way, work on that. Work on building a fresh identity. Work on healing advanced childhood experiences. Work on healing any traumas you might have. Work on learning to live with whatever lifestyle disease you might have or terminal illness that you might be going through at that particular moment, so that you don't affect this child. The other point is, and the last one is being mindful, accepting, and willing to shift your perspective, not being rigid. Okay. So we have to be mindful, and in mindful means that you ground yourself and everything, your emotions, your cognitive, your psychological reasoning, all align. So you're mindful, you are accepting, being aware of the state you're in, your skills, your ability, the demands you have in your life and your hopes, your ambitions, your goals, accepting those and then willing to shift, being malleable so that you are not rigid to allow another perspective or another view. Because when there is rigidity, then other people find it hard to adjust to your world. But when you can allow for a bit of shift here and there, then you learn and you can give and you can gain as well. So, as a parent or as a caregiver, these are the areas or the perspectives to look at. I want to believe that that session has been useful and informative, and that you have learned something. I'm being told that you can't hear me well, and I'm sorry about that. We will see when else we are having the next webinar, and we can take care of those mics. Otherwise, thank you for joining. We appreciate your presence. And until next time, see you and thank you for being here. Kwaherini. All right. Yeah, we can see a few people are exiting, but that is beautiful. That was a nice session. I hope you have learned, and we will call it a day. I can see that request. But this is a training.